we're talking about that 1 in 200 year event, and we're on the roof installing these systems, and the sun's out and it's balmy. We're loving it, but you got to keep in mind we're up there in the best of the best, and we've got to design these things for the worst of the worst.
I'll say 2 things to that. I've heard the amount of times I've heard, Belly, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never had a panel fly off my roof. Love that statement.
Yeah, it's a grandma principle.
I love it.
My grandmother did it. I do it that way. Bullshit.
And I like to say, you've never worked with 2.3 meter long panels. You've never worked with, and you still want to do 2 rail insulation on corners, like, okay, we've never had the 1 in 200 year event. And when that happens, God forbid the people around his installations are going to be in danger, right? There's going to be, and I'm hoping in that event everyone's inside and they've barricaded their windows and and glass is covered. But realistically, do we still want panels? No, that's why the code is there. What's the standards are there. But the second point, the most important point, is we're seeing cyclones, we're seeing high wind zones happening, high wind events happening, and they're not even reaching these maximum limits. They're not getting to the design considerations that we have to design against, and we're seeing failures. Guys, it's happening. It's not happening to you, which I'm really happy about, but as a specialized engineer in the space, when something happens, we get one of the calls to come in and to look at it forensically and say, why has this happened, and provide guidance and whatever else. And when we're looking at these failures and we're providing a very easy response to some of them, a lot of the times it can be linked to workmanship, 100%, things not being done correctly, but sometimes it's because of poor engineering, and we've said it and we've had to call it out before in the past as well. And this is at wind pressures that are only hitting 80% or 85% of what the maximum wind pressure is. So it should be able to withstand that. And then when we're saying, and then they say, oh, it must be the racking. And we say, oh, well, look, we've checked the racking. The racking can withstand this level of wind pressure. And we've designed it to withstand. So it can't be the racking. But if you don't install it correctly, or if you install it with 2 rails on a corner, and if you whatever, that racking hasn't been designed for that, because it's got a limit and you have to put more racking. But people aren't aware of it. So they're using, a really common example is someone installed with a general certificate and they've said, oh, this and that. And then we're like, what bit of the table did you use? And when you get down to the cracks of it, they've used the wrong bit. The winds come only 80%, but that 80% is greater than what they've used, and panels come off the roof, right? So it's a very serious problem, and the biggest problem with all of this is that every time this happens, Gamcorp have to sign a very juicy legal NDA. That means that we can't talk shit. We can't talk about it. Right? Yeah, but it's true. It's because people are worried, and rightfully they're worried about reputation, and it's not a definition of who they are as a business, one case or one thing. Yeah. But at the same time, it's a problem. We can't learn from it as industry. The funny thing is, a recent cyclone that happened in Queensland, a report came out where it said, and I'm not going to mention the name, but a third-party company. That's your
favourite comment.
A third-party company who's auditing the wind event has said there was no failures recorded during this event, and I just politely sent them a LinkedIn message saying, "Hey, just letting you know that pit that you wrote that there was no solar failures is factually incorrect. There's been 4, and I can show you the details of them without giving any information away. I want you not to misinform the industry." And that was the conversation that led from that. So the whole point I'm making is know that they're happening, and that we would never want it to happen to you, and we're doing everything we can for literally the safety of the people around these buildings.
Well, that just goes down to the importance of getting a site-specific engineering assessment done, because I'll read through the generic certificates, and back in the early days, we'd install off the generic certificates. But the more I'm learning, the more I've been in the industry, is you read through that certificate, and 10 years ago I'd read it, and then today I read it and go, oh geez, I missed that part. Yeah. It said the purlin thickness had to be 1.5 mil.
Yeah, huge.
Did I go check it?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'd just gone off the generic certificate, assumed that we're all good, but another little simple one is your panel sizing. They're doing a generic certificate up to a 2 metre panel. I've just installed a 1.2 metre panel, or a 2.2 metre panel, I should say, and I've gone over the generic certificate, and I've gone over the limits that it's been designed for. So the importance of just going away and getting that site-specific assessment is huge. And for the installer coming to site, you've got faith in what you're installing is going to last, and it's going to last its lifespan being 25, 30 years, and you can go away at home and sleep and know that you're not going to get that phone call and say, hey mate, one of your panels you just flying off the roof.